We are finishing up some copies of the revised budget, which should be up here shortly. So if you would give us a few more minutes, we'd be happy to have some extra of those.
The mic is not helping.
It is not. Is that better?
Yeah.
Okay. We're gonna get it real quick.
Thank you.
digits, and I am delighted to ask Chief, maybe Orno, if you could lead us to the please.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you, all. So this is the second meeting of the budget committee for contract. We presented a budget on the 18th of November. Some discussions ensued and certain departments were approved. Since then, at the request of members of the budget committee, we went back to our department heads and asked them if they would look at their budgets again, determine if there was any way they could provide assistance. And with a lot of work on their part and some tremendous work by our finance department and treasurer, we have identified some adjustments that can be made to the 2026 budget. We will be reflecting some of those within the budget items of departments that were not approved on the 18th. But there were several departments that went back and did some very difficult work and were able to assist us. So to that end, we do have tonight an action which some of you may be familiar with on the Robert rules. It is to reconsider the votes that were taken in the prior meeting. I will get to that. I do have copies of Robert's rules that we provided to the budget committee. So if you're not familiar with the reconsideration, you can certainly review that. The first order of business I would like to take up, though, is to have the budget committee review the meeting minutes from the 18th, and then I will entertain a motion to accept the budget committee meeting. As you know, many of those items were discussed and presented and were approved unanimously. There were a couple of items that were not. The result of the reductions and adjustments that were made reflect the decisions that the committee made and are therefore included in the budget. The items that will not be necessarily kept as they were will be brought up for reconsideration. But first off, I would like to have you review the budget, the budget committee minutes, and I would entertain a motion regarding acceptance of the unit. We'll give you a couple more minutes here to review it. At this point, I think the other item that might be appropriate to bring forward is a recently provided resolution by members of the budget committee that are going to be in front of each of the members of the committee and the commissioners. I think we'd like to get a few copies here at the table. And we will give one of the budget committee members a chance to make a motion and address his intent with this. And if the budget committee so desires to vote on those the resolution, we will take them into consideration. Are you prepared to take action on this?
Motion to approve the minutes from
So we have a motion by Councilor Chance. Do we have a second? Have a second by Councilor Thomas. Any discussion regarding the minutes? Seeing none, I will ask for a vote. All those in favor, please raise your hands. Any that are opposed? Voting carried. Next item is with regard to the resolution. Council with chance was the point person to share that with us. I will review the opportunity if you so desire to make a motion and then discuss it or maybe explain it and then make it.
Thank you, Commissioner. Members of the budget committee expressed concerns on how the budget was formulated and presented and formulated the resolution in an attempt to ask the commissioners to take some action in the upcoming year or 2 years. Better provide the committees in the future. We work through these budgets in a more timely manner, but timely ways. We experienced here tonight and so on and so forth. So, okay, with here tonight, I thought I would read this resolution that's been prepared. Yeah, I think the would take action on it. Next. County. Objection. Resolution of the Penobscot County Commissioners, whereas the Penobscot County Commissioners have developed a budget that addresses the county's long-term needs, preventing shortfalls. Whereas the Commissioners recognize that budget increases affect property taxes for the 59 municipalities, Penobscot Nation, and the territories. And whereas Commissioners are committed to improving processes, transparency, and best financial practices to strengthen communication. Now, therefore, be it resolved that as of this day, 2025, the Penobscot County Commissioners affirm their intent to pursue the following policy initiatives as part of their ongoing commitment to effective governance and equitable service delivery. 1. Establish a fiscal advisory working group consisting of approximately 5 individuals with municipal experience to provide guidance on sustainable budgeting and operational efficiencies that benefit are equitable to all communities within the county. Commit to researching a plan in collaboration with municipalities for the transition to a fiscal year beginning July 1 and ending June 30. Explore the development of a county charter pursuant to MRSA Title 30A, Chapter 11, including consideration of alternative structures for budget processes and committee membership. Adopt and publish a scheduled timeline for the annual budget approval process by July 1 of each fiscal year until any new fiscal year structure is implemented. And 5, establish and share a schedule for completing all outstanding fiscal audits and publish or share finalized audits in all communities in the county. All that this resolution is adopted with unanimous support of the County Commission. Request that they act on this, sign it.
So thank you for your explanation.
If I may point out, this is the budget committee's meeting, so the commissioners would not be taking action on something. I would offer a friendly suggestion. There are a couple of items here that we might want to consider adjusting so that you will take action because you're indicating this is a resolution of the county commissioners, but you could amend that to the budget committee. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, there are 52 towns in Penobscot, not 59. that would be another recommended amendment. In your resolve, I would suggest that you insert the month of December. You have 12 days, that will put us in January. And then at the bottom, again, the resolution is adopted with unanimous support of Norfolk County Budget Committee. I might, depending upon what the budget committee determines in their vote, striking the word unanimous, but that is your prerogative. So I would suggest you adjust that so that you could validate this evening as a resolution on the budget. With that consideration.
Commissioner Cushing, are you suggesting that this committee adopt a resolution?
I'm suggesting some amendments before you determine if you want to make a motion to adopt this. How the committee will proceed, it's in your feet.
I think that, you know, what we would like to have is we would like to create more transparency for the county commissioners and the communities of Norfolk County, and I think that we would. I believe that there are some members that would like to see that the county commissioner consider adopting something similar to this. Maybe not exact, but they consider something similar to this nature.
Certainly. We are not in a position to take action on this tonight. You are in that position if you choose to take action on this. I would just ask for you to consider some of those clarifications. Since it is a statement of those who have accepted the responsibility as a budget committee member representing their communities and their district. So it is in your right, and I think it is a significant statement. In my personal opinion, I don't want to speak for the commission of what the budget committee desires, and I think we would reflect favorably on that. We just cannot take any action tonight. So if you're looking for some validation, you're going to need to determine how you'd like to proceed with the next meeting.
I would, please correct me, but I would like to make a motion to request that the Penobscot County Commissioners consider adopting a similar resolution at their next meeting, and I would request that the committee members have anything to add to this, that we request that this gets approved at their next meeting.
Same. I intend to.
Do you not wish to take a vote on the budget committee tonight?
Are you referring to the committee is the support of this?
That would be the determination of any motion that you wanted to put forward for the budget committee's action. Again, we will certainly take it as an item, but if your objective is to state your positions as the committee for the Penobscot County budget, I would ask you to reflect on how you would like to adopt this.
Have it formalized as request.
I would like to, and I hate thinking about these motions, but I would like to make a motion for the budget committee to request the county commissioners adopt this at a future meeting and after we vote on whether to request them to.
You might, if I may, consider taking this in steps. If you wanted to pass a resolution tonight from the budget committee, you could amend this to reflect that, and then you could make a secondary motion of desire to reinforce resolution.
So as meticulously outlined by Chair Cushing, I would like to make the amendments to, the draft of the, to, a resolution of the Knoxville County Budget Committee. Strike 59 municipalities and to 52 municipalities.
Friendly suggestion, if you wanted to, not a base number, you could say all municipalities of Knoxville County.
That's just great, that's great. The front of that number. For the municipalities, because not what they can eat on the territories within Knoxville County. And. So that as of this day,
Perhaps
2-0
December.
to. Yep. This is 12th day. December 26. 2025, so okay, I don't worry. 26.
Promise you we won't be here till December.
And very unanimous. And support of the Knoxville County budget.
So I have a motion to accept the resolution with amended language by Councilor Chance. Do I have a second? And a second from Councilor Oz. Discussion. Yes.
The way this is worded, it does not seem like this is something that,
Councilor, could I ask if there are people watching online, would you grab them the microphone?
Sorry.
So- And I think if the red light is not on, there you go. Thank you.
In my opinion, the way this is worded, this would not be something the committee would adopt, it would be something that the commissioner would adopt, like. I had nothing to do with drafting this, but when I read it. These steps that are outlined don't seem like something that this committee would be.
Also. Maybe if we added the word encourage before each of the 5 steps.
I'm sorry, at the end of the day, the goal is we, as the budget committee, are looking for transparency and more collaboration and teamwork from the county commissioners. And this suggested resolution is intended to not necessarily be adopted by the committee, but we are encouraging the county commissioners to consider adopting such a document that will allow for greater transparency, us having, more than just one meeting to look at financials. We're looking for a collaborative teamwork approach on how the budget is managed going forward, which is a little bit of a different process than what it's been done in the past. And so, I'm not sure if we need to pass a resolution for that. I think what we're looking for is collaboration from the commissioners as it relates to that.
Mr. Chairman, can I make a motion? I think the commissioners and committees that considering this document and the next meeting in the future. And I'm not sure in the role of the budget committee, if they have role to take votes on the budget. So I would say if you've got a word, you're gonna, and I know it's not a majority. I don't know how many people on the committee like it, but even if it comes, I'm okay that we consider this a forthcoming meeting.
There was a short window of opportunity for us to get advice on this. It was not presented in time for the agenda earlier today, so I want to respect what you're going to do here, but I think hopefully this commission has demonstrated by their actions this year that we can make some of these goals that you have outlined for reality. I guess it really comes down to whether there is a need or desire on your part to memorialize this in some form of action, or whether we can continue to find the opportunities to work together here. Councilor Hawes.
This resolution is really a request to the county commissioners to look at these items that we've presented. I would assume that with the assurance of one of the commissioners that they will at least look at this, entertain it, if it's something that you're willing to do, if they have minutes and meet and fix it. It will be reflected in the minutes that this was presented as a resolution on behalf of the budget committee for the commissioners to take a look at. It was strongly accepted by the budget committee to move forward. I think what we would like to see is the same kind of thing from the commissioners. Look at it, think about it, add some things for the collaboration and collaboration, sign, send it back, and then we have a mutual agreement. Right now, minutes will reflect that we did on this date, 12th of December 2025, present the resolution as a request to the commission.
Thank you. Other comments or questions?
But would you think, is it possible to take a vote from the budget committee if there is support of like Councilor Hawes just stated?
If there were a different motion, I do have something that is on the floor now that has been seconded. Representative Gill.
My suggestion would be that the motion should be that we as a committee vote to move this over to the commissioners to actually have them enact it or discuss it and get back to us. That would be our role, that we should be the ones making the motion for you, not to accept this resolution.
Understood. So are you amending the motion?
Yes, I would amend motion to do that.
Representative Gill has provided an amendment
Yeah.
to.
Second time.
Thank you. I have a motion and a second to refer this to the commission for consideration. Any further discussion on that action? Seeing none, are we ready for the vote? The vote will be on the amendment to refer this as opposed to pass it. All those in favor of the motion, the amendment to refer this, please raise your. Are there any opposed? We are now on to the main motion, which now is reference as opposed to passage. All those who wish to speak on the amended motion, please indicate. Seeing none, are we ready to vote? All those in favor of the amended motion, please raise your hands. Any opposed? I think it is noted that this was unanimous, so thank you for bringing it to our attention and talking this through. At this point, we will move again into the budget process. As I have indicated to you, there are some items which you took action on during the meeting of the 18th. During that time, you approved some departments which have since then made adjustments which will help us accomplish the requested goal of the budget committee to adjust the total budget down. According to Robert's rules, a motion to reconsider lets a group revisit a voted on decision, requiring a member from the winning or prevailing side to move and have it seconded by anyone. It will then pass by majority vote. It brings the original motion back for debate, amendment, or a new vote, but cannot be used if actions are irreversible or if another motion like rescinding better fits generally need to be raised during the same or next session. At this point, we will take up Department 10, the Registry of Deeds. Do I have someone who would like to pose a motion? Councilor Warren.
Commissioner, can we please Can we please hear from that department on, where the additional funds are coming from?
We can, once you make the motion to reconsider. We need to open this up before we can have a date on it.
I make a motion, to, reopen up the department for registry.
Could I have you describe how you and how we do that? So that's very good.
Having voted on the prevailing side in regards to Department 10 registry of deeds, I move to reconsider our action.
Is there a second? I have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed? At this point, we're open for a request and motion. So at this point, if we need the register of deeds named present, they will come forward and explain how to be able to success in the process.
Good evening. I'm Susan Boulay, the Register of Deeds. And what I propose to do is not to adjust the expenditures in my budget, but to increase the projected revenue by an additional. So it would be 1.25 million, and I would propose I would be able to turn over to the general fund. I know the last time I said I was hesitant to do that, and I am still somewhat hesitant to do that, but I do believe that that I can meet that goal without too long.
Any questions for the registrar? Representative Foster.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, so I have two questions. One would be, I believe yours was one of only few, if not the only department that had no increase request, is that correct?
Correct.
So, that in mind, I'm wondering where exactly you think that these additional funds will be attained? What part, is it strictly from deed transactions?
Yes, so the registry of deeds, we collect revenue for recording fees and transfer tax. And then we send the state their share of the transfer tax, and then we turn the rest of that money over to the general fund revenue. And we have made some adjustments to the registry of deeds fees for 2026, which I anticipate should produce more revenue for us.
I may share. One last question. If that's the case, why wasn't this $150,000 included in the purchase?
Because whenever the change is made in my fees, I don't like to make a change the first year. I like to see what's gonna happen first before I come to a board like this and, make a change. But because of, because you requested additional money, I've said, well, okay, I think probably this will be more realistic. Hopefully. You're welcome.
Commissioner Cushing?
One moment.
I think that, just to be clear, in having an opportunity to talk with many of the committee members, that the goal of working on the budget was to minimize expenses, and not necessarily find additional revenues. Respectfully, it's difficult to believe that we're going to find that dollar amount in such short distance between when we had our last meeting and in this meeting. And so I'm not really sure how other committee members feel, but the goal here is really to reduce expenses.
Calculation of how much money. So currently I have turned over money to November, which is 1.1 million, I believe, for this year, so far, which meets my budget for this year. So whatever money is brought into December is gonna go to the surplus. But but like I said, we're changing the fees. As far as expenses in my department doesn't have any fluff in it. So unfortunately, there really isn't any place for me to reduce expenses. Sorry.
Just want to speak quickly to this, people make you skeptical, this is an additional revenue. For years when I was treasurer, they used to budget. We used to budget, I think, around 900,000 every year, I always said, it was always over $1 million, and I said, let's do it. But this was a time we had reserves, and that department would always create additional money to go into reserves the following year, so we had a health reserve balance every year. We unfortunately don't have kind of that position now, so I think I'm very comfortable at 150,000, we could probably use 200, 250, but 150 is still, I think, very safe. It would be a stretch to go behind.
Well, that's the whole thing, is I just really don't know because the fees have changed, so I just really don't know what's gonna happen. Not only did we change our fees, but the legislature reduced the amount of transfer tax that the county gets to keep. So I just really don't know how that is all gonna.
With the current housing market being the way it is, what would be the possible worst case scenario if county doesn't hit that mark? It's done next one.
That's not a question for me.
I think the reality is that there are a number of lines in our budget that are based upon best estimates of what expenses could be. We don't know what electricity rates will be next December, we don't know what water and sewer utility rates will be. So we have to use calculations based upon known numbers, and at this point, when I came back to Susan, after she tracking her budget in late fall. So the calculations were based upon last year. Since then, some of those numbers have been higher than expectation. So she felt comfortable in order to accomplish the objective that was set here, that she could be part of that, not on the expense side, but on the revenue side. Other questions?
I'll make a motion to amend Department 10 registry of deeds to the revenue of $1,250,000.
I have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion with a second, do I have further discussion? Are we ready for the vote? All those in favor of the motion to amend revenue on line 22 in Department 10 to $1,250,000, please raise your hand. Any who oppose? Seeing none, the motion carries. Thank you. At this point.
Commissioner,
Yeah.
before we go any further, it appears, and unless I'm mistaken, at the bottom of the sheet, it appears that there's a savings of about $900,000 or reduction of $900,000. Is that correct?
All told, the adjustment would be approximately that, and it takes into account these revenues that you'll be seeing as well as the practice.
I think some of the discussions that I heard flying around was an amount somewhat larger than that. So my question becomes, as we're reconsidering these. And it's very good that you worked hard to get to this point. But if we're trying to find more than this, how do we go about doing that?
So you have the option of reviewing any other items that have not been voted on. There are still a couple here that will be moved for reconsideration that you can also discuss. I guess at this point, my question would be, what does the budget committee hope to accomplish tonight?
Well, again, I would just say that certainly there have been discussions floating around among. Why? Yeah,
We're now in a public session, so it's up to the committee to determine how they wish to proceed.
and I completely understand that. But I just don't wanna get bogged down by saying, all right, we're gonna do 150,000, and then we gotta come back next week and reconsider. Saying, oh, well, it's gonna be 175,000, yeah, we can get another 25,000 out of it. And do this with every line. And as already pointed out, we really weren't looking to. Base this budget on revenue more so than on deductions. And I just, you know. Making sure that as we move forward. We keep that in mind.
I think the commission hopes that the budget committee recognize that we are trying to validate their concerns. And our departments have worked very diligently to provide the first budget and have taken some tough decisions in the second budget. May I ask a question of the budget committee? Would you permit one of our former administrators to address the budget committee? Is there any objection? Seeing none, Mr. Collins? If you grab one of the mics, Bill, so that folks who are, maybe Sheldon will let you use the mic. Hit the red.
First, I apologize for interrupting. My name is Bill Collins, and I had the pleasure to be the first Penobscot County Administrator in 1982. The elephant in the room is not being discussed. If you look at historically, you're going to see all these county departments have been within budget every single year. The challenge is in 2008, the state of Maine made the decision to make a unified correction system. And I have on my phone public law that they would pay from the general fund the additional cost to operate the county jail. The commissioners have been using their fund balance to take care of the shortfalls annually for the county jail. This budget before you, I respect the sheriff in the fact that his costs have only gone up a few percentage points. But it doesn't matter if the cap that's on the jail and the cost of operating the jail are so significantly different, then that shortfall has come from the county savings over the year. When Scott Atkins presented to you last night, or last couple of weeks ago in November, ultimately he said there is no more money to pay. So you can go through your exercise tonight, and I respect it. But you are not going to find, as you noted, $3+ million. If there is action to be taken, the action is to make the state of Maine live up to their, by law, it's in law, obligation to fund the shortfall at the jail. That's why all these other departments before you are being slashed and cut, when in fact, that's where the hole is. I apologize for taking your time, but that's where the hole in the dike is. And until that gets fixed, you could say we will only fund the gap, and that 3 million plus is now the hole that you have to send the bill to Augusta or get your law firm to take steps to collect what the coming shortfall of the budget's going to be this year.
Mr. Collins,
I'll answer any questions.
I appreciate it. You have served or did serve 18 years.
19.
Thank you. During that period of time, was this a problem that happened recently, or have there been ongoing shortfalls related to the jail?
One of the bigger challenges, and the committees are to discuss it, is the county works on a calendar year budget. The state of Maine is operated on a fiscal year budget. And when you would go to Augusta to make your plea to present your budget and what you needed for the jail, the legislature doesn't convene until late April, May, or June. You would not know what your funding was going to be. And so you're approving a budget tonight, not knowing what the state of Maine will or won't give you. And I don't have the historical data in front of me, but it's my understanding the county jail and the sheriff means of this has been flat funded, meaning no additional monies for since I left, which is in 2020. Your budget grows, and all the mandates on how the jail operates comes from Augusta. So I used to have this example. I'm going to give you a hotel, and I'm going to promise you 100% occupancy. Will you take that deal? And you say, gee, that sounds like a great deal. But what I didn't say to you is now that it's 120% occupancy, that additional 20%, you have to find a bed and you have to pay for them to get there, to come back. And that's coming out of your pocket. That's the jail I just described to you. In the state, at one point in time, we had 200 inmates. The state said, no, you have to be at 156, no more. So when you reach that 156 number, anything over that travels. You pay to send it down, you pay to send it back. They've got a court case, the case just got canceled, now you gotta send it back. Those costs fall to the county. And they're not being recompensed. That's where you're going to find your 3+ million. If this body, all your municipalities work together to go back and say to Augusta, you have the town manager behind me, Andy Hart, who's from Carmel. Andy was a former administrator like myself. He knows the battles we would fight in Augusta. He can tell you the same thing. That's the hole with that. That's where the problems are. And I agree. Make the county a fiscal year budget to coincide with municipalities. And that will help. There'll be some pain to do it, but that will help.
Thank you.
I'm sorry for interrupting.
Thank you then.
Thank you. Apologize at all.
Representative Foster.
Thank you, Chairperson, and thank you for your service. I would disagree though on what the elephant in the room really is. I think most of us on this committee, especially those who've been through this process this year, are well aware of Sheriff Wharton's detriment, the issue with the jail, and the fact that this has built over the last few years. Where we're at now, it needs to be addressed. I think most of us even agree with that. The real elephant in the room for me is when I look at 20% increase we have on the plate placed upon the towns, municipalities, so on. Again, this year, I've been on this committee now since I started the legislature in 19. And if I look back at the budgets that we passed, we had single-digit increases up until 24. We went from 8% to 17%. And then again, last year, 25, we went to 19%. And now we're looking for almost 20%. That's the real elephant in the room for me. Now, as I said at the last meeting, there's at least one bill in the legislature coming to us
that is going to request that county budgets in the state of Maine go up for referendum. One thing for us to think about, especially the commissioners. You know how that would go if we sent this out now. The other thing is, and I don't need Sheriff Warren to come up here and tell us again. Because I saw it happen, the fight that went on in Augusta to try to get this money. And I have said here, and some are here and some are not, in the majority of Augusta, those are the folks you need to talk to and make that happen. We try. Finally, I'll leave it at this. I worked on budgets a lot in the private sector, and I know government's different, and I know we gotta have, and I know there are people out there that are gonna have to pay us. But when you think about those items, and when you think about this referendum issue, this comes to fruition. I suggest that we need to come up with a decrease, not the full amount, but something that people can at least swallow up there. When I go back to my small communities and tell them it's not 20%, it's now whatever. And I will applaud anyone who came up with more income. But I don't consider that as helping the situation. I look at decreases. When my boss came to me and said, guess what times I had in the paper industry, cut the budget that we worked on and we approved at the beginning of the year by 10%. I didn't have a choice. That meant maybe relieving some folks of their jobs. It meant cutting back on equipment we planned on replacing, so on and so forth. My feeling is here. And I've said this before every time I've walked out of this meeting over the years. That's no way to plan a budget. I don't know why I'm here. I think I probably asked as many questions as anybody over the years. But there was not really a process way that we got to look at the whole thing. And I applaud the resolution. I think that will help. I think the commissioners will find it helps as well. But to me, for instance, a real $1 million reduction is only 3.33%. Where I came from, I would go to the departments and, except for deeds, who asked for nothing. I would say, find me 3%, $1 million. That takes care of the $495,000 increase in the jail budget this year, and it takes a whack at the hole which has been created, as well as taking care of that hole. $1.5 million decrease is 4.99%. I think that's reasonable, but I think if we could come somewhere in between here, at least I can go back to my town, say, we tried, we're in a bad spot, we got to do something about it. The elephant in the room is that the state of Maine financially, in our areas, in rural towns, especially in the Penobscot County region, are in tough shape. It's going to be a long winter. And we need to reasonably try to do something that people can say they helped us out. That's my opinion.
Other comments? At this point, we would then enter the expenditure side related to some of the departments that you have already voted on. Department 4, the Penobscot Regional Communications Commission. Does the budget committee wish to reconsider their action on that from the November 18th meeting? Councilor Moran.
Based on the feedback from county commissioners that there is a reduction from Department 4, and having voted on the prevailing side in regards to Department 4 PRCC, I move to reconsider our actions.
I have a motion. Do I have a second? Do I have? Second. Thank you. I have a second. At this point, we're open for any discussion. Seeing none, all those in favor of reconsideration of the Department 4 PRCC, please raise your hand. Are there any opposed? Seeing none, we're one opposed. Thank you. Councilor Chance is opposed. At this point, we are open for discussion on Department for PRCC. Is there any proposal? Yes, Councilor Moran?
Commissioner Cushing, is there, this has been a, common conversation among many of the, budget committee members. Administratively, I think what I understand that you're explaining is that is there a way that we can make a motion to have the county commissioners reduce the budget by 3.33%, and then have the county commissioners determine really where that is best decided? I can appreciate to see these adjustments that have been made on, computer equipment training and training overtime, totaling $40,000. I'm assuming that the department head came forward with those suggestions.
You can make any motion you want, but I think in reflection of where we're at, we need to have a budget from the budget committee so that the commissioners can have the public hearing and final action for the year, because we're obligated to do that by the end of December, which is coming upon us. So it's at the pleasure of the commission, the committee, how you wish to proceed. Right now, we have opened up Department 4, so that is what is before you, is to reconsider Department 4. Councilor Michigan.
I make a motion that we accept the cuts for Department 4 as presented.
Well, the way that I would like to proceed, if I may, is we have some work that the department head did in lieu of the discussion I had in some of the budget committee earlier this week. And I can offer you what is here if you wish to make the motion. And then we will discuss it. So line 73, 1,000 under Department 4. Under the PRCC is being reduced to $30,000. Line under PRCC Department 4, line 36,0001 is being reduced to 0. Line 36,1000 is being reduced to 0. Representative Foster.
Thank you, Commissioner Cushing, and I'll just make a point that the original request for the increase to $148,592 was 3.36% increase. A reduction of 3.33% would take $152,037.91 away from what is the current budget for that department. I'm not going to make a motion to do that, but I would suggest that
would behoove commissioners in the departments. If this committee felt that needed to go to a 3.3% reduction in the overall. You folks find a way to make that happen. Not leave us to do it, with every line of both, and then also reopen items that don't already both.
Thank you, Representative Foster. Our finance director or our treasurer, perhaps, Glenn, could you speak to what a reduction of 1 point in this year's budget would require for a dollar figure? Do you know the approximate number?
1%.
I believe it was $250,000, is it not?
Yeah.
So the adjustments that, I'm sorry, I can't hear you, that's nice.
Yeah, this is 250.
It is 200.
Okay.
4% would be
4% would be $1 million, so each $250,000 reduction equals 1% in total adjustment. So to that end, the adjustments that we were able to determine since the request was made to us is approximately $800,000, which would be 3 points. So you're already at 3-point reduction if you accept the changes that are considered in this budget. Representative Foster.
Certainly, Mr. Chair wouldn't disagree with the Treasurer's statement on yours. What the 3.33% that I'm talking about is away from 90. Yeah. Lost it. The increase that we were going, the actual tax levy that we were going to go, so this is not 3.33% budget. So if we look at the 90 million plus. I believe $1 million is 3.33%. Reduce the increase by 3.33%. Not looking to necessarily reduce the entire budget, just the increase. When we go to the voters, that would still be equal to somewhere around 17% increase.
President Farmer, do you have a revised percentage for this year, which we changes that were made by the department head?
I do, so like 60-45%.
that on Mike.
After the changes that we proposed, the increase is now 16.5.
Representative Foster.
Thank you, Mr. President. Found my notes. So 3.3%, 3.33%, which would be $1 million reduction, 30 million, $61,784 that was been proposed originally. That would be 15.8% increase going out to the voters.
I guess I need clarity on the number that you're using the 3% reduction on. Did I understand you to say 31 million? Or you're talking about,
So in 2026, the original budget, the increase 19.79% is $30,061,784. We reduced the budget request by $1 million. That would go down to 29,061,784. So that's 3.33% drop.
so you
That
were
would
referencing.
that would take it to an increase of 15.8 or almost 16% versus almost 20%.
So you're not referencing the full budget amount, you're only referencing the portion that would be overlaid to the taxpayers, to the property taxpayers.
Correct, and maybe I wasn't clear, but my suggestion originally would be that commissioners go to the department heads and suggest that they reduce their requests by 3.33%. That would get us to $1 million reduction in the overall request. How I should say. All Russell.
I think I understand a little bit clearly what you're asking, but I'm not sure if the treasurer or the land, if you would like to speak to the process.
Does that include the GLBAC?
Yes, that includes that. It does not include jail extra income.
Well, what about the jail budget itself?
Well, basically the $1 million would, in my, when I would finance people, it takes care of the jail increase of 400, I think it was 495,000. And it takes 505,000 away from the other requests, so Nora hits that. We're still filling the gap, but the other departments are gonna have to come up with that money. That's what I'm saying, of that $1 million savings. Reduction.
But if you reduce the jail cap, then that puts us into a negative fund balance.
I'm not reducing the jail.
You keep
Leave the jail alone if that has to. What I'm saying is, in theory, I can tell my voters that we took care of the increase that was requested by Sheriff Warren for this year, 2026. And we also reduced other budgets by 505,000 to help decrease how much we're gonna ask for, right, from you to take care of the jail gap. Jail gaps don't get taken care of, there's other departments in this county that are gonna help make that happen to do it 505,000. And well, to the $2 million, I say, because I'm guessing Sheriff Warren doesn't want to kick in any more than he already has on the sheet.
But just to clarify, when you talk about the sheriff, are you referring to the jail portion or his responsibility for patrol and other law enforcement activities?
I'm referring to the, I believe it was the jail portion that was the $495,000 increase. And that's not going away, that's gonna be paid. But what I'm saying is, I can go back and say, because of that increase, and because of the jail gap that's occurred, built up over the years, this is the reason we are asking for 15.8% increase last year. And it's also, I can tell them that reflects no way on paperwork to really happen. I can say, in my opinion, we helped cover that 495,000 and part of it by making this $1 million reduction overall. In what the request, the increases, not over last year's budget, but what the $1 million reduction requested increase. You have on your sheet, that you want us to go by, got $815,500 that listed. And I'm not sure if that penalizes any of those departments more than maybe some other departments could come up with that we already voted on. Where we did not discuss, what if we took a little here and a little there? And I would suggest that we forget about the income that you found. Come up with real decreases, totaling $1 million, and then if indeed Deeds has that extra income, then that helps with your issue of not having any reserve. Thank you.
Councilor Moore,
Definitely work on my parliamentary meetings here, so bear with me, but I'd like to make a motion for the budget committee to reconsider and substitute all prior votes regarding the 2026 budget, leaving the jail cap as it is, reducing it by 3.33%.
Isn't there a motion on the table for?
there is a motion, to reconsider Department 4, PRCC. So respectfully, your motion at this point would be out of order. Representative Gill,
It is her motion, she can withdraw the motion.
yes, you may.
Thank you. Would like to withdraw my prior motion.
So at this point, you are withdrawing your motion to reconsider Department 4. Before we vote, before you take that action, bear in mind, under Robert's rules, you may reconsider a motion only one time. Councilor Falou?
Can I ask a question
You certainly may.
before we pass that motion? So, because I have a question about the budget Like while we still have it open, right?
We certainly do.
Okay, so while we're considering like, all of these cuts and looking at this overtime budget, and it's already way over for the year, and then it, like, I guess my question would be, why is the overtime budget so far over what was budgeted?
Let the department,
What department?
let the department.
Yeah. There's no trouble this way.
What,
Sure.
oh, it's RCC. It's Department Four, the one that we're looking at, yeah.
Director LeBoy, would you like to come forward and answer that?
Yes.
So the reason for the overtime being way over what it was projected is because we were short staffed. You remember when we met last month? I told you that we were extremely short staffed. Coming out of COVID, coming into the beginning of this year. And it takes, for every time I have an employee leave, it takes 6 months to train an employee and get them certified to take and fill that role. All those hours have to be filled with overtime. I still have an obligation to provide my employees with vacation time. They still have the ability to use sick time. They're not feeling well. I have minimum staffing standards that I have to meet. It's a public safety organization. I can't run it a 917 with people. So when those people are out, I have to fill those positions with overtime. I have to back them. Now that we are fully staffed, that overtime number will be reduced. Does that answer your question?
Yes, okay, yeah, because that was gonna be my next question, is 200,000 gonna be enough in the next budget, but if you're fully staffed, then, okay, thank you.
Other questions regarding PRCC, Representative Gill?
A point of clarification, were exactly right, we cannot reconsider the motion once, however, when she withdrew her motions, though it never existed.
I haven't really withdrawn it yet, we're still having discussion.
Right, I'm just saying, she hasn't withdrawn it yet, but if she does withdraw it, it can be brought up again, because this is, yeah.
Thank you. I did want to clarify that this is a one opportunity, so.
Well, in reality, it's not, she withdraw.
For reconsideration on an issue, but thank you. Is there another question from the director regarding the Department for budget? Seeing none, thank you for your time. So at this point, Councilor Moore, you wish to withdraw your motion to reconsider the Department for.
Yes, thank you, Commissioner Fisher.
At this point, is there any further action regarding Department 4 or Department 12, which is the sheriff's budget, which was another area that you took up and voted on in the last meeting? Councilor Michelle.
Yeah, I have a question, excuse me, it's my first meeting, so.
That's okay.
I thank Marcia for getting me on this. But if you look at the bulk of the budget, lots is in the sheriff, a lot of it's in the sheriff's department, so. And my question is, when you look at the vehicle. And be interesting what the sheriff has to say, what is wrong with delaying some of that cost? And looking at the legislature, I know that hasn't been success in the past in the main legislature. And there is over $1 billion in the rainy day fund, however, the rainy day fund is one-time money. I think it'd make more sense that if we can delay one-time expenditures like vehicles, go to the legislature, try to get that one-time money in the rainy day fund to pay for this, so it's not a gap in the state budget either, so. I guess my question for the sheriff is, can we delay any of those vehicle, and if so, how much?
I would be happy to allow the sheriff to come up, but I can tell you from experience that he reduced one vehicle request this year to 2 vehicle requests this year overall. As you know, we are different than the municipal department with the the regional zones that we have to cover. And the rural areas that we have, the number of deputies that we have at the moment also takes into account certain communities who are purchasing, contracting with us and covering equipment. So there is a requirement, and this has been going out for a number of years, to replace vehicles on a certain level because you reach a point where they are not serviceable. Or the cost to service them exceed what putting in new vehicles. So it is certainly an area for consideration. If you'd like to delve into it further, you're not going to, I mean, the average is about 55 to 60,000 per vehicle. So you can take that into calculation. We're looking at only 8 vehicles in the budget for this year.
And I realize that they do have to be replaced, we should replace them, but in terms of trying to get the budget down where we have to go. Is it an absolute must that we have to replace all of them, or can some be delayed to the next budget cycle and use that argument when you go to the legislature for one-time money? The other issue, actually, you mentioned contract with the municipalities, and obviously now the sheriff running this meeting, is I want to know what's included in those contracts with municipalities. Are we subsidizing them at a greater level? I think it's 85 or 90%. I know the sheriff was thinking about what's included in that number, to make sure we're not subsidizing those towns that have contracts with the sheriff department. So I'd like to know exactly what is built into those contracts with those municipalities.
Sheriff, would you be willing to address this issue?
Thank you very much for the great questions. A couple of things.
All right up close.
Thank you very much for the great questions. I would love to see the enthusiasm of going to the state and finding out when the state police decided to back off from rural patrol services throughout the state. And we begged and went to the state to ask for funding and got zero, not a dollar. It was mentioned earlier tonight when you brought up registry of deeds, nobody here talked about this. The register talked about the only county tax that we have, the real estate transfer tax. 80% of the county's real estate excise tax goes to the state. 20% goes to the county.
No, that's not correct. That's been changed. The state now takes 90.2%. Now we have 9.8%.
Let me finish. You didn't let me finish. That's fine. Nobody even caught us. The change, she said, was the state changed it again and reduced the amount of money coming to the counties. Maine Municipal did a great job. Maine Municipal were in before the county commissioners went to the legislators and said, let's try to address this through rural patrol. That could have helped us fund those positions. It didn't happen. So to think that we're going to be able to go and get one-time funding for cars, I hope you're right. I don't see it happening. We've been fighting for my entire adult life that I've been here to try to get the jail funding situation, so we can't get that here. The contracts for the towns include a prorated portion of the vehicles, fuel, insurance, equipment, the deputy, and all of their wages. That's what it is in the. And so I believe we provided clearer update on this. And I was talking to Brenda earlier today. I think our percentages is much higher than the 87% that we were shooting for. Because of a couple things. One is the county passed on additional increases to towns. I think some of those towns said here that said, yeah, we took a 6% increase increase in those contracts to the towns. And a couple of things happened, with that, like that we also have some of our long-term deputies have retired and moved on. We have some deputies that are not at the same pay rates. That's changed that percentage quite a bit. So I think that as that average has changed dramatically. In this year's budget, we got 2 vehicles out of that. When we did our budget this year, I saw this coming. I've seen it coming every year. That's why I've stood before you for 12 years, 11 years as your sheriff. I stood before you as the chief deputy and said, you're approving budgets without the elephant in the room being fixed, that Mr. Collins eloquently spoke of. We have never fixed that issue. And we continue to bring it up and bring it up and bring it up, but it hasn't been done. I apologize for getting off track from the vehicles, but did I answer the question? Sorry.
Yeah, so you're saying 50,000 is what you really have to do to replace it, you can't.
Sorry.
As far as the mileage per vehicle, you're saying at 50,000 miles is what you have to replace,
That was the cost.
all the cost.
Our vehicles anywhere between 150 and 140 or 150, sometimes more. You'll notice in our fleet, we try to keep the vehicles the same style of vehicle, but when I'm able to take it off the road. Down there working on your area, right, they're gonna go a lot more miles than one area. We might be able to cycle that vehicle down into a spare vehicle for a couple of years. I can then maybe move it over to transports, let them use it for a year or two, run back and forth to the hospital. You have to balance also, you've seen in the last couple of years, I was questioned about, why are your parts and maintenance costs going up? We were trying to keep these cars alive. When we went into this budget process this year, I understood some of these shortfalls. We surgically went after our budgets. And that's why we're looking at the law enforcement budget, it's a 70% law enforcement budget. 3.97% increase in the correction fund. I still understand those are increases. But it's not part of it. The funding issue is that continues to be the issue. I understand that, I don't know how to make that up. That's why I think that's ready to forward to help us address that. But as far as when it comes directly to those vehicles, I don't know how to cut any more of this. When the commissioners came before us today and asked us to take another look at this, we did. And we found some more cuts. And the cuts, I will tell you, in the spirit of what you and all of us are trying to do, I agree. To do it, I totally disagree with it. And here's why. We're doing the same thing this committee's been doing for years. We're backing our way into a number, we're trying to get to a number. And then we're gonna ask, why next year or 2 years from now, need an extra cost? Why is I'm letting freezing a clerical spot? And then somebody mentioned, why is there overtime? So why is there overtime? If I'm going to freeze a spot and save some funds, potentially when one of those folks are out, we're gonna have to fill it, maybe overtime, but we will do that. Move the clerical spot. We went out and did try to be very creative to say, instead of using buyout, another thing that helps your town and others, that we started a part-time program. Looking at Custom University and others, as a matter of fact, 2 of my deputies are going to graduate next week from the academy. And all of it came out of this new concept of a part-time program. So I didn't have to buy them from another region, another municipality, burdening that municipality. But when I've done that, we have to build that part-time program. We've got that, that's what we got. We did the second request. We've got $15,000 so that we don't have any more money in buyout. What I'm concerned about, Mike, is we make these cuts, we do the right thing, because I think it's the right thing for this moment. But somebody's going to question why we're trying to fix that later and potentially put things that we need in our budgets. We did the same thing with the jail budget, not tomorrow, except this way on. We did the same thing on the jail budget. We looked at the pre-trial service program that we just started, supervisor, case manager, I haven't filled the second case manager, trying to manage the situation. In the second round of reviews, I've asked to freeze that position. My concern, that's what we're trying to do, is get people out of the jail. What if this program really starts rolling, I throw in that position? We've also got, speaking of vehicles, money that we put aside, we don't buy a van, buy them every 4 or 5 years. Our transport thing has more than 250,000 miles that it's going off the road. We get every inch out of this. And so that money is, we put into this budget, and we want to roll it forward so that I don't have to come and put $60,000, $70,000, $80,000 into a budget to buy it. That's the way the county is always operating. Those still, budget committees think that's a bad idea, let's remove that all. But in 4 or 5 years, we're gonna need another van, and we try to put $60,000 or $80,000, also unfortunately, for a freshman style van today. That's a tremendous jump in budget. We try to progress. The total in the decreases in this round for the sheriff's office alone are 12 is about 250,000 of this. I believe in doing it in the budget basis. I know what we're trying to work on. I believe in that vision. But I think it's the wrong way to do it. We're backing into fixing the problem, we're not fixing the problem. They're fixing it tonight. And then we're gonna walk around and wonder why I'm spending overtime. Wonder why I'm spending so much on fixing the vehicle. That's the problem. We've got to fix this in both ways. We have to fix it this budget. If we're not committed to doing what we're saying, or going with us and fixing these issues, we're not going to fix the problem. Problem that's correctional utility. Oh, I'm a good representative said, I don't need the sheriff to come up here to say this again. I've been up here so many times saying, you just approved our budget and know that there's no revenue. Not enough. And the building, some of my news friends compared us to Cumberland County and said, why does Cumberland County budget talk well? So it does. They're boarding in units. No different than Two Bridges did. Scott County, when I took over, we were making revenue because we had some beds we were able to take in federal needs, sample was here. But I remember pointing out back then, Peter Balaji, Commissioner Sanborn, and others were those seats that we were bringing in one. And then when we started to get full, we couldn't justify taking in federal inmates when we were overcrowded. We had the jail bit was originally built for 136. It's state rated for 157. We were running with 220 so individuals in that jail. It was dangerous. It was not a safe and humane environment. The state stepped in and said, Sheriff, you can no longer do this. And I said, where do we move them? Move them to other facilities. By the way, the state didn't offer to take over the break. We had to move them to other county facilities. It went from not for bringing in revenue $200,000 or $300,000 to now putting money in our budget for ordering from 500,000, 750,000, 1.2 million. We're up to 2.3 or $2.4 million to this budget. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm frustrated. I've stood here over and over saying, boarding alone has put us in this situation of why the county is draining or nearly draining its budget for its bank account to pay this difference. So it wasn't being passed on every year. Maybe it should have been passed on every year. That's for you folks to figure out. But it's a problem that if we don't fix this all together, fixing this one budget, it's not going to do it all. And I apologize for everyone. Those that know me know I'm high people on this. I'm so frustrated that we run such big budgets that it shocks me that there are people that said there's lots of money in these budgets that we can have. That's not how county government. Some of you know Tom Davis. I grew up under Tom Davis. He didn't help to offer me a budget. That's just how we grew up. And so I appreciate the time. I appreciate letting go on way too long. My command staff is up back bringing the keys, saying stop talking, Sheriff. This is my one time that I can get in front of you because it's not working. We're not making that change. How loud? This is the first time I've seen people fill this room. And we've been talking about this forever. I will do what you need me to do. We've made $250,000 more copies. I don't know where else to do it without making drastic changes in the services that we provide from Newport Bay to Mount Jesus. And providing the second largest parking facility in the state. If I can just finish with this, what drives our costs, and I told the commissioner I wasn't gonna mention this, was solidity. We had a serious incident where an individual was arrested on a very dangerous drive. And brought into our facility within days. Within days, the individual was court committed to the Department of Health and Human Services for the state. Signed off by a judge and a psychiatrist, the individual should be in a state forensic facility. $27,000 in overtime work later, over 20 days, the person still remaining at East Main Hospital being guarded by correctional staff here. Because the state didn't have that. Somebody here, much smarter than me, tell me how I can. How do I figure it out? I call everybody, I call the governor's office, I call the commissioner of DHHS, I talk to the commissioner of the Department of Corrections, I talk to both mental health facilities. I apologize for sharing this, but you need to know what's this role is.
Thank you, Sheriff.
Thank you, Sheriff. My mouse and one vehicle. And thank you. God, appreciate it. Seriously.
Thank you, Sheriff. Other question? Absolutely. Ken.
I guess it was maybe a question for Sheriff, unless you know the answer. We know how many beds there are at Katie Hospital.
And well, Acadia Hospital is a private care facility. Whitfield Dix is the state facility to which I believe that individual reported. I know that they have gone through a renovation over there, but I can't speak to the actual number of beds at Acadia.
Okay. I was thinking probably that was competitively run facility.
It is not, it is part of the lights. Representative Foster.
Thank you, Chair. Question. First of all, I wasn't suggesting that there's a lot of fluff in any of these budgets. Concern is that basically commissioners went to the departments that they felt we could get some savings. Still feel that there might be a little bit more there if all departments are considered to get us to a larger amount of actual savings, decrease, I should say, and how much we're going to vote for the increase. I'm sure that the press will say that we decreased the budget. Really, we just decreased the interest if we get it. I'm not sure, Commissioner Cushion, how you want to deal with this. But I would imagine that should this committee, this budget committee suggest to the commissioners that they need to see a certain dollar amount in savings. Or we leave here tonight as a motion, that it would also be appropriate to move to open up votes and so they've already approved their budget. Because I know when we went through those, we did not look at and consider things such as Mr. Bishop brought up about vehicles. I'm not interested in going through these budgets this late in the game, line by line. But I am thinking that fellow committee members agree that we need to come up with what we think should be the amount of the increase over last year's budget, and let the commissioners with the department heads figure that out. I'm not sure exactly how, if you want to do that, how will we proceed? Thank you.
Thank you. I think just for first of all, I pretty budget committee understands that nobody here has accused them of blaming us for having a fluff in our budget, at least not during this period. I can't speak for all the former ones. I think there has been great respect for the time and thoughtfulness, particularly related to the frustrating situation. I guess it is up to the committee, how they will proceed. I will tell you that according to my reading of Title 30, according to Penobscot County, including when I was find it here, you have a specific charge, so if I may. We have been at this for a while. If the committee would consider maybe a 5-minute recess so folks could stretch their legs, and I will look this up and we will come to 7 o'clock to reconvene.
Or you might advise it.
Yes.
That's
I haven't had the administrator provide for you on your table at the budget committee, a copy of Title 38, municipalities and counties, Part 1 counties. In Section 9N, the budget process. The county commissioner shall hold one or more public hearings on the budget at times convenient for the residents of the county and no later than 15 days before the end of the county fiscal year. So we have a timeline running through it. Budget submissions to the budget committee, county commissioners shall submit a budget for the coming year to the budget committee no later than 50 days before the end of the county fiscal year. I believe the budget committee received their budgets the first week of November, so we are in compliance with that. We held our first meeting, as you may remember, on December 18th, and continued until tonight, the budget committee shall review the budget with the county commissioners no later than 30 days before the end of the year. Hence, the start of the 18th, right, so we can find with that. And they shall make additions or deletions to the budget by a majority vote of the budget committee. A unanimous vote of the county commissioners is required to override the budget committee.
Chairman, it doesn't specify, but the majority vote for the budget committee, the membership of the committee, or the members present. Your mic's down.
It does not specify that, Commissioner. It says, additions or deletions to the budget by a majority vote of the budget committee. So it is silent on whether that is a majority of the 15 members or a majority of those present and voting.
Okay.
Yeah. So in regards to how you would like to proceed, I'm open to discussion. You are, with all due respect, obligated to provide us a budget figure that you have voted on and approved by at least security. Councilor Moore.
Thank you, Commissioner Bushy. I would like to make a motion for the budget committee to reconsider and substitute all prior votes regarding the 26 budget. And instead assume an expenditure budget of $35,153,902, which represents a reduction of $1 million from the original proposed 2026 budget. And further, for the revenue budget to include an additional $127,800 in tilt revenue, which will also function to reduce the tax assessment and further to require any reductions in the jail cap be made only if there is an equal reduction in the jail fund expenditure budget.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. May I have your motion to be, copy of your motion to reiterate that after discussion?
Yes.
Is it electronic, so you could send it to me?
Yes.
Thank you very much. At this point, we have a motion and a second. We are open for discussion. Yes, Representative Foster.
Thank you. Easy question. Yes, I would ask the commissioners if they want.
Okay, I understand that, but if there is no objection from the committee, we can ask if commissioners would like to, but this is really the budget committee purview. Is there any objection to commissioners addressing the budget committee? Seeing none, is there any commissioner who wishes to address the budget committee?
I appreciate the concept,
Could I ask you to take the mic, please?
you know, I appreciate the concept behind this, and I appreciate the work of the,
No, you're good.
the work of the committee. And the first, I appreciate the frustration, too, I believe it. I'm as frustrated as all of you are, because I sat on the budget meeting, and so it was quite a surprise this year. But I just don't think we need to take a butcher knife into something that needs a scalpel over. I mean, you're saying just cut across the board or leave it up to commissioners. I mean, come up with those kind of cuts, we can do it, but even in these proposed cuts tonight. The problem that got us here wasn't each of the departments, each of the departments had a very reasonable increase. It's the fact that we put off, the county put off addressing jail tax issue for so many years, and we got to this point. So when you look at the 2 pages that were put out for suggested adjustments to get us to 810,000, which is close to where this motion is, not far off on that motion. There's something there which I just don't think is fair. I mean, I didn't appreciate what happened at the last meeting when Department 34 was cut out. And as soon as it was, people said, oh, let's put this program back in, let's put that program. Those programs in Department 34, when the county started funding those, the hazmat team, the animal shelter, the great response services, the Together Place, barn, those are services that they help people stay out of jail. They represent every community in the county, and that's why the county gives it, so they don't come asking every little community in the county. The county contributes to those programs because they benefit the county. And on this sheet that was handed out, there's a proposal to zero out the funding for Pancras Cap and Eastern Maine Development. 25,000 or 63,000. Those programs have been flat funded for years, and those are unrestricted funds they get to support matching funds, which we get grants, and they both do tremendous work throughout the county. Pancras Cap is unbelievable what they do with the LIHEAP program, what they do with first time home buyers. There's so many programs they do to help people throughout the county. And Eastern Maine Development has worked with first time home buyers, they work with small businesses. They just helped get a grant through their one of the grant writers just helped the Patton Library for a grant for around $600,000 to build a new library. So they helped all over the county. They helped the Y project in Bangor. So I don't think this pull a number out of the hat is particularly helpful with this group to override that. I mean, we could still get to that figure, but it wouldn't take a majority. It would just take a majority to pull money out of this department or that department. But to change the entire figure would take a unanimous vote of the commission as I read the statute. So, and I'm not sure that the intent of the statute is really to do that. I think the intent is to make adjustments within the budget. That's what we've always voted in each department. So I would leave it up to, I don't know if that's even in order that motions.
So at this point, I just want to reiterate, because it was someone who brought up motion. So the motion made by Councilor Moore is for the budget.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
About to speak.
Oh, I'm sorry, sir.
Thank you. You know, I've listened to a lot of comments. I think we're all in the same boat here. We all know what we need to do. What needs to be done is how to get there. And to our legislative delegation, you know, as a former legislator, certainly I've got such, I know that when I wanted to cut the budget, because I wanted to say 4 or 5%, that was reasonable because Augusta, traditionally, state budget is fraught with torque and waste and whatnot. And that money is always available. You can always find money in the state budget to cut programs to cut. However, when it comes to the county government, this is a lean agency. County government is lean. And there's only so much you can cut before you cut into the flesh and the services that are really required by law. When it comes to some of the programs and donations that my colleague referred to, I have a problem with us donating, taking public money, tax money, And turning it around, no matter how worthy these organizations are very worthy. They do a lot of good work, there's no question. But with some of these programs in here, we pick one of them, said there may be 5 or 6 others who do the same thing, but we tend to pick winners and losers in choosing who we're going to give money to these donations. But the underlying theme for me is to take money, collect money from the taxpayers to run the county government and turn around and turn that into donations to these worthy organizations, on behalf of the taxpayer. Well, my view is that if the taxpayer wants to make contributions, they can do it themselves. They don't need the county government to collect their tax money and turn around and then give it out in terms of donations. And we have our own operational budgets in such a disarray here. I've always had a problem with that, and I have to admit, my first 3 years here, I've watched this come up each time, and I bit my tongue and just voted to go along. But the truth is, I've always had a problem with redirecting public monies meant for the administration of county government and diverting it elsewhere. That addresses my position on 34, Department 34. With the hazmat, the order hazmat, that is a public safety issue. And that has, we're gonna wrap that into the EMA, the emergency management budget, where it probably resides and should be an ongoing function and funded program through the county budget. Orono Hazmat is a one of a kind. It serves the entire county, in fact, other counties, and it is it's critical and it's public safety, which, in my opinion, is part of our responsibility as commissioner. I think that the recommendations of the various departments we see here today are saving with $815,500. I don't spur revenue. I don't question the department when they say that they believe they can meet those revenue increases. They're the experts on that. And I tend to trust the professionals that we have employed give us their recommendations. So in terms of the additional revenues on tilt from leads and probate, that totals what? 300,000, somewhere around that. Added to the 500,000, that gives us the 800,000, 50. My problem again has been with the state. It's been in the works. We've known it from day one. It's been building for not 3 years. This has been building for 10 years. This problem has been accrued since this thing is. And I think the Collins really, Mr. Bob, hit the nail on the head. He's given a historical perspective that clearly identifies the problem. So the solution, I think, is not going to be to blankly cut across a 3 or 4 or 5% cut, whatever, across an already trimmed budget, and think that we can continue to provide the service we're obligated to. I would like to think it's possible, and if there's a state government, I'll be the first one in line. But I don't see that as a real viability. And with that, I'll wait for recommendations on the final budget. Thank you.
Further comments? We have a motion which I'd like to read once again so people can absorb it. Is there anyone in the room that would like a copy that I can have our administrator or staff go and make copies so we have it in front of you? That be satisfactory. If you'd like me to be kind enough, I will email this to you now that Council Norman.
A copy of what, Jim, do you have it?
I am sending you an email to your county email, which is the language of the motion that Council Norman.
Very good.
So let me, while he is producing that, summarize this for you. The motion was to reconsider and substitute all prior votes regarding the 2026 budget and instead approve an expenditure budget of $35,100,000 $153,902, which represents a reduction of $1 million from the original proposed 2026 budget. And further, for the revenue budget, to include additional $127,800 in tilt revenue, which will also function to reduce the tax assessment. And further, to require that any reduction in the jail cap be made only if there is an equal reduction in the jail fund expenditure budget. So if I may, I want to get some clarification here, if I could, from the maker of the motion. So you were asking us to go back to the budget that you were providing in November of 18, which showed, I don't have the exact number in front of me right now, but it was over $36 million. And you are asking us to reconsider and substitute all prior votes regarding the 2026 budget. So in regards to that, we voted on Department 32, which was building improvement, and we deducted $120,000. We voted on Department 34, $111,500,000. That was zeroed out. We then had some discussion about items, but no action was taken, as we were noting in the minutes regarding one of the line items that was deducted. Tonight, we also reconsidered the department for the registry of deeds, in which, I'm sorry, Department 10, registry of deeds, in which you approved $1,250,000. Parliamentarily, I believe you have reconsidered Department 10. I don't believe you can reconsider that again because we have done it once. So to clarify, Councilors, does your motion intend to reconsider Department 10 because it would then be out of it?
Well, if it is not able to include Department 10 because I've already called it up, then we can exclude that. The point of the motion Commissioner pushing is that as the committee members, for us to go through and identify line by line what needs to be done, that is very difficult. We are not well suited to be able to determine each department because there may be certain things that can be cut. And I hate to, continue to mention this as an example, but, Brewer is considering a fire truck. That is a purchase that we need to do. We've already had our first budget meeting. We know that we have about pretty close to a $2 million shortfall. We may need to reconsider that and move that to another year. That would not be appropriate for me to talk with someone bigger in his city council to ask them to weigh in on that because they don't intimately know that. And so I just use that as an example of us being in this forum. At the end of the day, the request that the majority of the budget committee as previously indicated was they were in favor of is a reduction in $1 million. And the folks best to determine that are going to be the department heads. And I will just, the comments made by Representative Foster earlier, using the example of if, $1 million, equates to X percent, if each department looks at that and makes adjustments, that they're going to be more well equipped to be able to do that than us sitting here line by line. So the request would be the county commissioners identify what are those items.
I recognize you. I appreciate what you're saying. I am responsible for moving forward motion for your consideration in a form that meets parliamentary procedure. So I wanted to reflect on the fact that you have already reconsidered the department, which added revenue, I just want you to reflect on that as we move forward, and we'll be able to address how the final budget that you will be voting on will be configured.
At this point, Representative Joe has and point of clarification, if this motion fails, then we can't reconsider any other. Because that's what this motion is doing, it's reconsidering all, it's all motions that we make.
That we have taken.
So if this fails, we can't go back and do that.
That would be my understanding, but I think we have to clarify for those who are voting that Department 10 has been reconsidered, so must be taken.
Yeah, I understand that completely, I'm just saying, if this motion fails, we're basically done.
You're not done, but
Well, I mean, we can't vote on any of these.
an alternate motion which would not reflect any of the changes that have been booked beyond Department 10. You could not take into account the approximately 200 some odd thousand the sheriff has been able to find because you voted on that. You could not take into account the 40,000 that PRCC has found. And another 1 or 2 remaining items.
I just wanted to make,
And I just want, I know that there are a number of committee members who are new, I just have to tell them, this is a little mind boggling. I just want you to understand for you, so that you can take action. I sense the frustration, and I also appreciate the effort that you're trying to put in, but you are charged with providing us with a budget that we as the commissioners take the public hearing and then ultimately have to determine how we will vote on it. So I will need action tonight that tells us what your intention is. It may, but you're appropriately pointing out, if we were to pass the motion in current form, first we'd have to amend it to extract Department 10. Because I'm quite out doing it. And then we will have to determine. Yes, sir.
Just Department 10 or any action taken so far?
So my understanding, that is the only action that you have taken regarding reconsideration. Because the council would work, what other action did we take tonight? She withdrew her motion. So Department 4 and Department 12, the sheriff still are up for reconsideration and would be part of the pending motion, but we would have to extract Department 10 from this motion. Is
Even
there,
though it's a revenue, not a revenue.
you have already voted to reconsider and the motion asks for reconsideration. You can only reconsider something one time. So that is why I wanted to clarify for you that Department 10 would not be eligible under this motion since it's already been reconsidered. Has everyone gotten a copy of the motion?
yes, we were,
Okay, so the committee all is in possession of the written motion. If you will give me the courtesy of pointing out a couple of other questions that I need to clarify here. Okay, so we have discussed the reconsideration issue. And you've indicated substituting all prior votes regarding the 2026 budget. So that would mean that Department 4 and Department 12, which are on our agenda for reconsideration here. And then you have also approved finance. As I've indicated, approved Department 10. I believe we also approved Department 4 HR. Thank you, Department 2. And then we dealt with Department 32, and 0 on that out there, reserve, and Department 34 for our program donation. So those are the actions that we took on the 18th, which you would have reconsidered. So in understanding that, you would have reconsidered your action and reapportioned the $120,000 that was found in the building, which this is Department 32, you would have reconsidered the program donations and reinserted that $111,500. And then you would have charged the commissioners with finding the $1 million. If anyone wants to correct me, because I'm out of date, please speak up. The last. Well, you have specifically indicated that we should include $127,800 in revenue, which is the portion that we typically hold aside each budget year when we receive our allocation from the federal government. In case the federal government did not in the next year provide that, so we would not be left with too large a figure. That is fine from my perspective. The last question is the jail cap any reduction to the jail cap be made only if there is an equal reduction in the jail fund expenditure budget. Mr. Treasurer, would you be in a position to explain the difference between the jail cap and the jail operating budget?
The jail cap is the amount of money that we levy for the tax. The jail budget.
Microphone.
Oh. Okay, the jail tax is what we assess tax to pay for the jail.
Under the state funding formula.
Under this funding formula. The jail is not included in the discussion for the levy for the tax bill. But it is there as a reference for the jail cap. That's my understanding of it.
I think the point that sometimes gets confusing is the jail cap is statutorily set as to what we can raise from the property taxpayer. But we still have operational expenses that end up in our budget as well. Sure, am I correct? Does your team have any clarification for what I said in regards to that?
I apologize, I was reading. Is the, are you asking for a 3% reduction? Is the 3% reduction in the increase or the full budget? For each department?
I believe the motion is for $1 million. But they're saying if the jail cap were reduced, the jail expenses would need to be. I'm not saying. It's not directly impacted, so I understand you. Okay, so in regards to that clarification, does the maker of the motion have anything they would like to add for the budget committee to understand this?
I think we'll probably take some time to make a little break on the committee.
Okay, so I believe I saw a couple other hands first. Councilor Campbell.
This has become so convoluted and confusing. I do not feel that I can vote on any of them with any kind of knowledge or confidence.
I'm Reverend of Boston.
Thank you. Here, question, maybe. I'll try to clarify it, maybe your help, think that will help others. So my understanding of the motion, I'm not sure I fully understand the jail piece of it, but the intent of reducing the budget by $1 million. Budget committee requiring that commissioners are laying that final amount to the commissioners to deal with. Commissioners would then have the option of looking at the items that will then be reopened except for Department 10. And also, obviously, considering what's already been proposed, which my understanding was a savings of $815,500 from the departments that we have sheet provided tonight.
If I may just make a clarification, it's an adjustment because it takes into consideration additional revenue, so it's not completely a expense reduction, which I know is of concern to some companies.
So that would be in addition to what the reductions that are on the sheet. The departments, commissioners would require of the departments an additional $334,500.
Not to get to a million.
Well, it's 184,500, right, away from the million, the 815,500, but then I believe the motion says. Don't count the revenue. Of 150,000.
I think it does include the 127,800. It doesn't include probate or restricted.
Anybody's got that, what that number actually is, I appreciate it. I'm probably off.
So when you talk about that number, you talk about the revenue number or the expense?
Talking about what we were presented with here tonight.
Okay.
What the additional amount is, if we vote to request budget reduced by $1 million, what the additional amount is that we are actually asking the commissioners on. And can you say in reduction?
So if I may, just in case, in regards to, if we use the basis that you would like to reduce budget by $1 million. That you are saying that you will not count any revenues other than the 127,800 of total in this amendment, in this vote.
I believe that's what the motion is.
However, you have to reflect on the fact you've already included 150 in revenue.
I understood. But
So if we were to deduct the 127,800 from the 815,500. Because you're looking for $1 million in savings. I'm just trying to make sure there's some clarity here, or give you the opportunity to correct it.
The 127,800.
The $127,800 is specified in the motion to be counted as revenue to reduce taxes. So it cannot be counted as part of the 815,500 in adjustments to reduce this budget. If I understand you correctly, you're also saying we should not include the 25,000 that probate was able to identify for additional revenue. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So you're now Representative Bill.
The way I kind of read this and heard this. We're asking to reduce the budget by $1 million, just take $1 million out of that budget. And then those three pots of revenue money, 150, 127,800, and 25,000, that goes on top of that million to reduce taxes to the municipalities. So the total back to the taxpayer is 1 point, whatever that is, $3 million, $2 million, or whatever it figures out to be. That's the way I'm hearing this.
And
Go ahead.
I guess, well said, and then further simplify that. Basically, these red and green black sheets, basically throwing these right out the window. In their entirety. And just taking $1 million off of each one of the budget calculation sheet in our original binder.
Representative Mohammed.
But just as a reminder, we can't touch anything in Department 10. Right.
Well, your revenues, you have reconsidered that department, yes, so Department 10 would not be eligible under this motion to be reconsidered. So that is going to have to be amended out of this motion if you want to go forward and vote on it.
So the third motion on the floor will require an amendment to them any reconsideration of changes already acted on tonight of department heads.
You, if I may, you could perhaps consider saying, reconsider all departments previously voted on, excepting Department 10. And substitute the line items in the 2026 budget. And instead approve an expenditure budget of 35,153,902. So if that is indeed how you would like to amend your motion, but you are also giving us further direction, which specifies a $1 million reduction, and then assessing 127.8 in PILT revenue. We will have to take into consideration the 150 in registry. So you've got a motion here which we need to clarify before I ask for the vote on it. Or if you want to take it in this format, that's fine. Are you going to recommend Bill?
You can vote on this the way it is. And then still say that the 150,000 and 25,000, I'd add the 25,000 here. Since we've already dealt with the 150, I think it might be cleaner to keep that aside.
I think you're going to need to, in my opinion, in order to make this motion valid, we're going to have to exempt Department 10.
You have to exempt, yeah, absolutely. But that's 150,000 then is sitting out here. And I think we need another motion to make sure that it goes back towards. Actually, it doesn't come back.
If we exempt it, it would be my understanding that it would remain in the budget. But they are indicating that we would have to ignore that revenue to reach the $1 billion in cuts. So that would then get us to $277,800 in revenue that would have to be outside of any reductions that would.
They were saying the same thing.
We would very likely with our arms up.
In a different way.
Yeah, so in other words, if this motion passes, the county commission is gonna cut an additional 487,300.
That
Could you repeat so the public?
Yeah, so if this motion passes, but when it cuts it's here, if I move from 700, they have to cut an additional 487,300.
I disagree, because the motion doesn't specify these cuts take place, these cuts are off the table. We can cut it out more.
But yeah, but that's assuming that if they were accepted, then you'd have to find an additional one, but it's $1 million total. On the expense side.
Okay. Further discussion?
I need clarification to make what the jail cap and that intention was with that.
Because the jail cap, there has historically, there has not been proper funding or hasn't been properly funded. So the reason why there is that choice of language is to make sure that it's not dipped into, because it has historically fund balance has historically gone in filled that. So the goal would be to make sure that it stays kind of static.
Representative Foster.
And just to add to that, Representative Tower. Representative Dill and I will make sure that.
You can.
Just whatever, but I think Mr. Cushing was trying to. Clarify what it
it has to happen with Augusta or conservative. I don't know what's going on.
Thank you for that. Other discussion or does somebody? Yes, Councilman with chance.
absolutely leads right into my next question, that, what levers do the commissioners have or representatives have with, pressure on Augusta to start bringing revenue from Augusta to the county?
Similar letters that we had used last week. When committee presented the bill. But we can get that voted on. Hopefully that, what the appropriations committee to approve that and council to approve that. You have that same right as.
So that's when we're making, we're voting left and there, and in fact, falling short of the fall.
Well, we got a $4 million increase in the jail last year, that through the legislature, passed the House, the Senate.
With all due respect, we did not. We were flat funded. We got 4 million in match, which is a continuation of what we had done. So
What I told you, the 5 figure ones. And it fine, it passed the legislature, then it went to the appropriations committee. And like many things, it died. It passed the legislature, both chambers, died in appropriations. Most of us who served in the legislature, don't have the guillotine. They cut programs that have passed merit, and all comes down to the governor and legislative leadership of Augusta. And we have had very little success in getting any relief. I don't want to get us off track, right? Just today, they suggested that we need to take legal action. Where everybody's pushing out, we're going to plan a meeting in January, House County Legislative Delegation, and the many of you that come to the public, they need to hear from everybody in this room that it's got to fix this problem.
I'll give Councilor Balloon and then Representative Bill.
So in my opinion, we've got a couple of different things going on. We have the short term, we need to deal with this budget. The long term, we need to figure out the state funding. We're not gonna do that tonight. I personally think that we need to focus on the budget and figure out what we're gonna do with that. And then we need to look to the long term, so we don't find ourselves in this situation again. And like, yes, we have multiple elephants in the room. I think we've established that. I don't think anyone disagrees with any of that, but we are not gonna solve that tonight. And I think we have to stick to like, what are we going to do with this budget that we're presented with? Because we are not gonna get any more money from the state by the time this budget needs to be handled.
Thank you, Representative Bill.
I agree with what was just stated, except the long term.
If you wouldn't mind, thank you.
I would suggest that the long term is actually the short term. The reason being is, it's already been stated, us putting a bill in, it's not gonna do any good. Right now, it's $250 million surplus. Governor's working on the supplemental budget. She has to spend that money by law, because you can't put it in the rainy day fund because it is at its limit. So here's the perfect opportunity for commissioners or whoever, sheriff's department, that can get to the governor and try to persuade her. I'm sure there are other counties that need jail money also. It's got to go in the supplemental budget. Bill's not gonna do us any good.
With all due respect to your observation, I think we all know who have been there. The chief executive proposes, the legislature disposes. So really, I think our emphasis must be with the appropriations committee to understand. I hear what you're saying, Jim, but it's an election year coming up, and I'm not sure how much weight the folks who will extend beyond December 31st of next year, we'll put into a budget from someone who's not gonna be around to pay their. Either way, thank you for your comment. Representative O'Connell.
Thank you. This has been a very difficult process. And I just would like to take a moment to follow dedicated county employees that are living this process, that put their badge on or come to their job every single day, trying to stay motivated, committed, determined. And I just wanna, reference that, understand, see how this would be very demoralizing. And I just want, the residents of Connecticut County to realize how hard working and dedicated these professions truly are and how much we need them. I do have some concerns with this though, as far as safety, when we're talking about cruisers and transportation vans with over 150 or over 200,000 miles on them. Things like that really give me pause for concern for the safety of the this as well. I think that's something we also probably need to think about a little bit too. And this has been a great process, and I do think, as far as the parties, I do look forward to working with them for Boston representative. That's something that I've done tonight, that we've tried and we're definitely committed to trying again, and somehow we have this resolved and move forward. And I just appreciate that it goes to me. But mostly I just wanted to follow the ladies for their dedication.
Thanks. Other comments? Being at this point, I would entertain any further action to clarify the current motion before us. Councilor with a chance.
Yes, I'm gonna look to everybody else on the ask for clarifying suggestions of how we can handle this motion for us.
Representative Foster.
Thank you, Bill. We, I think, simply need to amend to exclude Article 10. Is that correct?
That will be one portion that I think definitely has to be amended to come in compliance with what you did earlier.
I would so move that motion.
So that motion would be to put in language that says the budget committee to reconsider and substitute all prior votes except for Department 10.
Correct.
Okay. Is there a second to that motion?
Okay.
There's a second. Is there any discussion on that? Representative Gilbert.
Go ahead, suggestion.
Okay, Representative Gilbert, so we got a point of information, we'd be happy to.
Yeah, I was just wondering if you wanted to add 25,000 on, so we can do the same line with the 127.8. Because it was 25,000 in revenue that was identified. We may want to put that in.
Okay.
Just so we all know that it goes towards tax work. And I'm still not sure what the 150,000.
Yeah,
Yes.
I would consider that a friendly plan.
So accepting Department 10 and adding $25,000 in revenue from Hillary department number. Department 11. Is there a second to that?
You make a motion, I'll second.
Okay. We have a motion, and we have an amendment to the original motion. Is there further discussion on that? Seeing none, we are ready for the vote. All those in favor of the amendment to the motion, which would add the 25,000 in probate money, along with the 20, that was the only, and exempt Department 10. I think that's what I've got, right? Did not write that down. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Are you ready? Any opposed? Are there any additional comments on the now amended motion, which will exempt Department 10 from reconsideration and add $25,000 from registry probate? Seeing none, are you ready for the vote? All those in favor of the motion as amended, please raise your hands. Any opposed? I count, can you count that? I think we'll do a roll call so that it's clear. Start with Representative O'Halloran on the amended motion. You need a minute to talk to Representative Bill? Okay. Councilor LaChance, I'm gonna start on your side of the table. Are you a yay or a nay on the amended motion?
This, point of clarification, this is the final motion as presented by Councilor Moore.
With the amendment
Amended.
provided by Representative Foster.
Exclude Department 10, but include Department 11.
The revenue of 25,000 from. You vote there.
And
Nay. I have nay, Councilor Moore.
Yeah.
Yay, Councilor Moore is yay, Representative Foster. Yes. Representative Foster will be yay, Councilor Bob.
Yes.
Councilor O'Loughlin.
Yes.
Councilor Swanton, Ewing.
Yes.
Councilor Campbell.
Abstaining.
Okay. Councilor Kennedy Wade.
Nay.
Councilor Moore.
Yes.
Councilor Kennedy.
Yes.
Councilor Michu.
No.
Representative Dill.
No.
Representative O'Halloran.
Yes.
Yay, okay. Can you give me the tally, please, Mr. Administrator?
I missed. How many are we missing here? Mitchell and Ann Morris not here?
Mitchell is here, I'm sorry, I said,
Yeah.
Councilor Morris is not present, I don't remember that.
Council back.
Councilor Bagley is not here. So I believe we have 13 voting members present.
8 yea, 4 nay, and 1 abstention.
8 yea, 4 nay, 1 abstention. So the motion as amended would pass. So at this point, we have a request from the Budget Committee to eliminate $1 million and to add in revenue sources from probate at 25,000, 127,800 from building. And we have already included $150,000 from the registry of deeds. Is there further questions from the Budget Committee? Yes, Representative Bill.
One last question, where does the $150,000 go?
Well, it will
Which column?
according to the motion, it needs to be booked as revenue. But as I understand this, and I want to clarify before we conclude this, you are asking for the commissioners to identify $1 million in additional cuts to the budget. Is that correct, or is there any objection to that?
Procedural question.
Yes, sir.
We don't have only Anthony tonight, I mean. traditionally, we had a vote for each department and then a final vote on each department. But it's a little difficult. As commissioners, to overturn the vote, of this committee, it takes some unanimous vote. So obviously, I think if you got to not to stick to this $1 million, as we go inside departments, does it just take a majority, does it take a unanimous vote of the commissioners inside each department? If somebody proposes we got a position in X department, then we don't have a unanimous vote to cut that, can we cut it with a majority? I mean, what's the process now?
I think we are going to need legal guidance on what we can do, because we've not experienced this. You know, at this point, I saw Mr. Lamb had his hand up. Did you have something you wish to?
Yeah, my spidey sense is going off that there's people understandably that are confused about some of these votes. I just wanted to make it clear. I think the motion here is $1 million on the expense side only. That's correct.
That is my understanding of what they have indicated. And if that were to impact the jail cap in any way, there would have to be an offsetting revenue, expense reduction in the jail portion, Department 9. Did you have something else, Steve? You really did.
Well, just trying to clarify one. The budget would require you and it's but within the department, within the mission, we would be down regular procedure, which is not limited to require a unanimous vote. I think we're probably going to be some majority of the commission. You have a reading on that.
I think we're going to need further guidance because we're in uncharted waters here. According to the agenda, we have other departments that were not addressed tonight, but you have given us your directive. Is there any department which has not yet been addressed that you would like further presentation? To give us guidance as to what you do or do not want to adjust.
Just had
Yep.
previous meeting, this committee. The Department 34, the Academy, that was not put by a candidate, I think it's our attention.
Technically it was because they reconsidered all actions except for Department 10. And restored all of the line items that had been previously adjusted.
Okay, so that came up.
So at this point, we have been charged with
So right now, all of the
reflecting on the budget figure provided to us in the 2018 version of the budget, November 18th version of the budget. With the directive that we need to cut $1 million from that figure. And book the PILT money and now the probate money as additional revenue. The $150,000 in the registry of deeds had been reconsidered. And so we are going to have to get legal advice as to how we will proceed on that issue. I'm not comfortable rendering a decision on something like this. Is there any further actions to come before the budget committee tonight? Yes.
On that, just a question, I've been looking at a few audits. Last audit on 2020, I know it's a major non-compliance issue, but it was the gas 75 non-compliance that deals with uncovered liability. When's the next audit coming up? And has the county addressed these unfunded liabilities, particularly identified last audit? Thanks to gas 75.
So I would defer to the treasurer because we are in process with 23. And there was a recent communication that our administrator was able to initiate from the auditors? Do you have anything you would like to share at this point, Mr. Treasurer?
No, just that 23 is in process. We would hope to be by the end of the year, but it looks like it's gonna be June. Or it's and then 24.
They are unable to start on next year's audit until they have the figures to reconcile for the accounts the coming year.
So none of this year, we got to the. Well, they have worked to get us the 2 years of behind. To get us up, down, and then 20. That is what I was. And that's what I like.
Well, encourage this, as soon as it's done, to start addressing some of the issues that's been raised, these are very serious issues, and if you want the legislature for some funding. I think, you know, when I was there, I always looked at what do you do to help control your budget, I managed appropriately, the 2022 audit report. Doesn't say that, and I think it's on the budget committee as well as the commissioners to really focus on trying to get this house in order, be easier to sell, I think, as far as the legislature.
Thank you. Representative Deal.
And at least one of the emails I saw, another meeting at 10 a.m.
We have our regular commissioners meeting scheduled for next Wednesday, the 17th. And then we will have a final meeting and the public hearing, which we're obligated to have on the budget.
So that's the budget.
On the 23rd, we're in the public hearing.
We start the 23rd.
Yeah, thank you.
Other business before the budget committee tonight. Seeing none, I would entertain a motion to adjourn. All those in favor, please. Thank you for your time. Thank you. Well. Yeah.